So, if I ask you to describe one of the following techniques for compiler optimization, could you do so? Dead code proof. What does that mean?
Piece of code.
Unreachable. Well, how could code be unreachable?
After return statement else.
After a return statement? Yes, certainly. Good. Okay. Common sub-expression elimination. What does that mean?
We use the expression in the for loop instead of doing it every time. They do it once and it stays, and then you use that as a variable.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the loop. It's something you use more than once. So the classic example is something like for I0, I less than array dot length or size I plus plus, which is a function call, or something like count over 2. So if you loop 1,000,000 times, how many times do you calculate count over 2?
1,000,000 times.
1,000,000 times you do the same thing, and are you going to get a different answer at any point? No, it's always the same. So you would say int x equals count over 2, or you can better shift, and then in here you can put x so that you calculate it only one time. Yes? Okay. Loop unrolling. Everybody knows that now, right? Loop unrolling. It's when you unroll a loop, right? Is that a good definition? Not so much. All right, inlining. Inlining. Anybody? This is where you remove a method. In its place, you put an inline function. You take a subroutine call and make a macro out of it. So you can do this in higher level languages. For instance, suppose you have a function square that you have written. Well, the compiler could create an inline function and just do a define and return x times x instead of a subroutine call, which would be faster. Loop fission. Fission and fusion, what are these? Nobody. Loop fission is when you break up a loop. Why would you break a loop? Right? You haven't eliminated loops, but you've broken it up. So maybe you have a for loop with 10 lines of code and you make it into a for loop with 5 lines of code. Why would you do that? Anybody think of a reason why? Yes.
So you're saying that you're going from one bigger for loop to two smaller for loops?
Yep.
Maybe you'd want to do that so that you can unroll one of them.
Well, if you could unroll, then, well, I can see that. If you took things out so that you could unroll, But essentially, if it goes in the body of the loop, it goes in the body of the loop. So it's not really loop unrolling so much as there's another really important reason why you might break them up. Yeah?
Does it have to do with taking out independent expressions so that you can run on the different threads?
Okay, optimization by splitting things up that can be parallelized, I'll buy that. But there's a big piece here that's easier and more obvious, and that is locality of reference. To make the branches shorter optimizes the code. Where you have long jumps, if you have long jumps, then it's very difficult for the CPU to keep all of that in the cache. So the cache gets tainted and it takes longer to access things, whereas if everything is close, the loop will run much faster, assuming that it has to be a loop. Loop fusion. Yeah, loop fusion where you break loops up so you get better performance. Well, if you have a lot in the body of a for loop, for instance, by breaking it up, you get better locality of reference. That is, the distance from branches to the locations you're going to are much shorter, and this leads to better code, optimum code. Loop fusion is where you take two or more loops and turn it into one loop. So you might write code like for 0, do something, for I less than n, I plus plus, do something else. So you have two sequential for loops in a row like that. You can instead get rid of this and put two instructions in that. So that is loop fusion, where you combine things to make a new loop with more in it than it originally had. Constant folding. Constant folding. Well, sometimes in a program there are expressions that you can resolve and get rid of. So maybe you have something like pi times 2. And you use this a bunch of different places. I don't know why you would want pi times 2, it just popped in my head. But pi is a constant, and 2 certainly is. So rather than putting pi times 2 multiple places in the code, you calculate what pi times 2 is and use that instead, rather than calculating it repeatedly. So at compile time, you remove expressions and put the constants that would result in their place. But this happens at compile time. Strength reduction. Strength reduction. Yes?
You turn on complex operations to reduce operations, like multiplying the by 2 plus a 9.
So you substitute an expensive operation for a cheaper one. That's the idea. Yes? X equals y times x equals y 1. Do those do the same thing? Yeah. The shift is less expensive in terms of the computational cost. It's less expensive. Any questions about this? Anyone? No. All right.
question on inlining.
Yes.
What is that specifically?
Inlining is where you make a macro instead of a subroutine. The compiler would do this. So in C or C++, you can do this. But you could also write a function if you wanted to. Private void sqr int n return n times n. So both ways are possible. In fact, if you put subroutine definitions in an H file, you can do this. I don't know if you're aware of it. You put the class definitions. If you have something simple like a stack, you have class stack, you can write the methods for push and pop in the constructor, and you can put them in the H file. You can do that. Okay, well, when you go to compile it, what's the compiler going to compile? There's nothing you can't. Well, does the class work? Yes, it does. Well, how can it work if you can't compile it? So when you make a stack in another piece of code, it uses macro substitution. Inline functions are macros rather than subroutines, even though they look like subroutines. So when you do an inline function, whether you use a pound define, or if you put it in the .h file, it becomes inline, which means direct literal substitution with replaceable parameters. Well, the language is different. Can I say int p equals 2, sqr_p. Yeah. Can I use either this or this? Yes. It works the same way, right? But what happens is if the compiler does inline rather than sqrp, it simply does p times p. It does an exact literal substitution. But with the subroutine, it jumps over here and does the n times n thing. It's a subroutine call. That involves using the stack. But with inline, there's no stack. It's just like a macro expansion. It's exactly the same. In fact, pound signs in C and C++ are macro processor directives. That's what they are. We don't have macros in Java, but there are in C and C++. Other questions, anyone? So why would you do that? Why would you do the compiler? You wrote this, the compiler takes it out and gives you this instead. It's faster. Right, this is about compiler optimization. What's faster, executing p times p or jumping to a subroutine, manipulating the stack, calculating n plus n and returning that and inserting it here? Well, that's obviously has a lot more overhead. Macros are faster than subroutines. They are. Yes. Other questions, anyone? All right, I'm going to write down some flags for the NIX BPE, and I want you to tell me if they are valid or preposterous. They're either valid or they're invalid. So let's go. N, I, X, B, E, E. Valid or invalid? Okay. Valid or invalid?
Invalid.
Preposterous, she says. Okay. Agreed. Valid?
Valid.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Okay. Then what is this?
J, pound sign.
If I ask you to write an instruction that would use this set of bit flags, what would you come up with? Why is it invalid? I can't hear.
And an X.
N and X don't go together. Agreed. Let's see, I've got a list here. Let me check my tricky list. I like it.
Valid.
It's valid, isn't it? Is that in the gray box?
Invalid or valid? I'm hearing both. It can't be both. It's valid.
It's in the gray box.
It's valid. What's an example of this? Now that looks like an error, doesn't it? Because what would that mean? Address to. Yes. But you might have hard-coded addresses. It's entirely possible. But that's not put 1000 in hex in A. That's go to address 1000 and take the contents of memory at that address and put it in A. Now, when I passed out your addressing mode sheets earlier in the semester, it's grayed out the top. It's because it's legal, but it's almost certainly a mistake to do it. Why? You shouldn't hard code addresses, right? Why would you? Why would you hard code addresses? Instead, you want an address label that can change if it's compiled, or assembled rather, reassembled, okay. What about that one? Valid or invalid?
Valid.
It's valid. It's valid. Oh dear.
But you're not gonna ask that.
Well, I want you to know if they're valid or not. All right.
She wouldn't do that to
Would not.
us.
Valid or invalid?
Valid. I didn't mean it.
Validated 2 X.
Well, if it's neither indirect nor immediate, do you,
Yeah. So valid.
Invalid.
so do we want to revise our answer?
Invalid.
Okay.
I think I got it.
Invalid.
Why is it invalid?
Base and
Can't be but base, relative, and extended. Extended. Now, is extended always an address?
Yeah.
Well, in this case it is because it's neither indirect nor immediate. Which means it must be a memory reference. So it has to be an address. Can you give me an example of an extended one that's not an address? What's the bit pattern? Not an address. I asked you this true false last time. And it's zero. What do we have? Well, what's an example of this? LDA pound sign 50,000? Sure. It's an immediate value, and there's no memory reference. It's just a constant. Yes, that's legal. Okay, I think you guys got this pretty good. Let's see what else. All right, I want to be sure you know what this means. So let's try some of these addressing modes that seem to have troubled some of you. All right, so given that, now assume that I do this. Okay, these two instructions, what do they do? Load 0 in the X register. The second one. So what's in the A register? If I ask you, please print out the contents of register A. What are they? List. A is a word in size. It's a register. What are the contents of register A right here? What's in the register? Okay. Now what's in the register? What's in A? Someone explain this to me.
So you go to alpha, you load 3 bytes. Load whatever's 3 bytes that we put into A.
Yes, essentially, this is load alpha plus 3. So if we did, I mean, if you went through 237 with me, you have seen instructions like alpha plus 2. What does that mean? It means the address of alpha plus 2 bytes go there and read what's in memory at that location. So if alpha has an address, let's say the address of alpha in the symbol table, alpha is equal to 00140. Just made it up. Then beta 00143, and then gamma 14. Yeah. Okay. So this says there's 3 in the X register. Go to alpha plus whatever's in the X register. Go to location alpha plus 3. Go to 00143 and read one word. And copy it into register A. Everybody with me? Okay. Okay, what's in the symbol table? What's delta equal? 2? Well, what does alpha mean? The address, that's it? Well, why is there a pound sign on it? Doesn't pound sign alpha mean the address of alpha? Here we've got LPA alpha, there's no pound sign, and it's not an address. Why is it an address there? Delta word alpha. Because the pound sign's not in play. I hope you all understand the pound sign. This is an addressing mode. It is not in play in your storage allocation directives, which are handled before the assembly process goes, essentially. Alpha means an address. It's identically equal to an address. If you use an addressing mode on that address, that's a different story. So does everybody understand why I didn't put delta word pound sign alpha? Okay. Pound sign alpha would be an error. It wouldn't mean anything. If were allowing it, you're going to get an undefined symbol, right? But you'd have to have a pound sign as the starting character for your label. Because the pound sign just is a character like any other. It doesn't mean anything like the address of it. Not in storage allocations. Okay. What is in register A? That's the word in memory at delta. Questions? Go to delta and take the value in memory at delta as an address and dereference it. It's a pointer. Okay, so you should expect me to give you a little piece of code and ask you to tell me the result of the instructions. It's not going to be a killer, but you should know how it works. Okay. Div alpha. Div alpha into what? Div alpha by what? What does this mean? Div alpha. Divide the accumulator by alpha. Now understand, this is a primitive architecture. It's a made-up architecture, but it's typical of what we might have seen in the late 60s, early 60s, 1960s, 50 years ago. The reason, of course, is the principles are the same, and it makes sense to have a simple architecture, but typical of that era was the idea of having one special register that's the accumulator. A CPU needs to have a data path through the players in an instruction. There has to be through at least one of them. So if you have a higher level language maybe, and you have something like from the Motorola, you don't need to know the Motorola stuff, but there is a data path that runs through D3. It's wired in, it's integrated into the path that does the divide. That makes a circuit more complex. It has to be. So the simpler architecture, there's one register, this accumulator, A, and virtually all of the instructions operate on it. There are a few that don't, like ST or LDS, LDT, load T, and S. Those are also general purpose registers, but you can't add with them unless you use register add. What's that?
I was just gonna say also LDB.
LDB, load into the base register, right? But what you can't do, you can do this. Add R S G, that's legal. But you can't do this. Add alpha T, because there's no circuitry to support that. It can't work. So the long and short of this is virtually all of the arithmetic instructions use the A register. So don't be thrown by this. If you see multiply alpha, okay, it's take alpha and multiply it by register A and store the results in A. If there's no A there, it's the only way it works. It doesn't work any other way. Okay, what else? Yeah, that's good. Okay. The Lincoln loads part here, I want to talk just a little bit about this. The linkage. There were more mistakes on this than I wanted to see. And I did not print these all out again. I just made one copy. And so I want to change the problem just a little bit, but essentially there are 6 symbols we worked with. And those symbols are list A, end A, end A, list B, end B, list C, and end So when you see a problem like this, the linkage thing we did on the test and in class, there is extern def, or def and extern ref. What do those terms mean? EXTDEF, extern def. External definition, export. So in program A, we have def, xdef, list A and end A. These are defined, declared in program A, but they're going to be referred to in programs B and C. I'll keep the format of this the same so we don't confuse you guys. It'll be prog A, prog B, prog C. Okay? So, what you want to do is make yourself a symbol table. This is easy. We tried to calculate these on the fly on demand. They're not hard, but you might get them wrong, and it's easier if you don't do that. So I'm just going to look here, and I'm going to fill in the addresses. List A is at 40. End A is at 54. Now the same thing with prog B. List B is 60. And end B is at 70 in hexacores. All right, C. I'm making a symbol here. C. List C is at 30. And NC is at 42. So 42. That's right after this, right? So does NC go between list A and end A? No? Okay, well what's the story here? These addresses look like they'd overlap. They're in different programs and different modules that start at 0 because they're relocatable. They need to be relocatable. All right. So let's make up some load points. Prog A, all let's say 100. Prog B, 1,000. And prog C, okay, there made up some load points. Okay, what are the actual addresses now? List A becomes, so actual, at load time, 00140. Right? This is not hard. What about the 60? 0, and then finally the last one. Okay, that's not terrible. So what I did first is not on here, but I wrote it myself. I'm going to create my symbol table with the new addresses. Okay. So I'm going to look at a modification record. This is what you process. You do not go through here looking for those symbols and change things. No, what do? You process the modification records. This one, the first one says, go to address 24, take 5 half bytes and add list B to it. You're familiar with this, right? So the record looks like this. I'm not going to write them all down. Modify. Go to address 24, take 5 half bytes, and add list B. List B, of course, is an address. Okay. So I'm going to that location and I find at 23, at address 23, I have okay. Well, this spot is 23. This is 24. Go to 24 and take a half bite. That has to change. You with me? After the 1, we have 20 bits, 5 digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the half byte. This is the half byte. Now you may see an 06. How would that happen? Because addresses are 20 bits, not 24. Well, we'll do that next. Okay, so go to 23. Go to 24 and take 5 half bytes. Well, because you're taking half bytes, you take the second half. So the 1, understand that 1 is a nibble. It's half a byte. It's 4 bits. So you start there and you add plus list B. So you have 7710106. Yes? Not terrible, right? Okay, let's do one more. I don't want to belabor the point. Many of you took the exam and you didn't bother doing this, and then you're doing additions later and messed up. By the way, so I don't forget to ask you this. On all 3 of these programs, the last instruction says end A minus list A plus list C. End A minus list A plus list C. Should all 3 programs have exactly the same address for those symbols? Yes, that's the whole point of this. End A minus list A plus list C should be the same thing every time, everywhere. Throughout the whole program, if I say buffer plus 2, no matter where you're at in the program, buffer plus 2 should be the same thing. Same idea here. But some of you have different values for the same symbols. So sanity check. If I have just list B, all by itself, in 3 programs, these 3, program A, program B, program C, just list B, then should the value be the same in all 3 programs? Yes. Yes, it must be. Okay, so the next one I want to do is this one. Okay, there's no splitting the bytes. 6 half bytes is 3 bytes, isn't it? Sure it is. So we go to address 54, and what do we see? That's what's in address 54. Okay, what am I going to do? Plus list C. Well, what's list C? Here it is. Plus and there you have it. Make sense? Okay, I feel like we kind of beat this stuff to death, and I would rather you guys who are going, gee, is he still talking about that? Especially since we have a Friday on final, and I would rather have you guys think, oh my gosh, is he ever gonna shut up? Than think, oh my gosh, I don't understand this, what am I gonna do, what am I gonna do? So, hopefully you guys are super ready now. Would you say you're ready? I think you are. I think most of you are. So, I told you last time I gave you sample questions to give you a sense of what to expect. This is worth a lot of points. I think it's 200 points. So here at the end of the semester, 450 of your 500 points, i.e. half of it, is coming. So every semester that I have taught this class, I always have one or two people that walk into the finals super comfortable and confident and ready to give it to me, I'm ready to go, and then they flunk it with flying colors. Not everybody, of course, in fact, not most students. But word to the wise is to review this stuff. There is nothing worse than watching a student grab the test, all eager, look down and go, I don't remember how to do this. And then sometimes they come and ask me, Mr. Higgins, how do you do this? It's like it's a test tube. Sit down, right? So please review so that you can do well. The test will be super fair. I'm not out to hurt anybody. You guys have done a hell of a lot of work this semester. Some of you have done more than a hell of a lot of work. I'm aware of that. Please, on the final, I'm going to ask you to tell me about your teams, and it isn't about tattling or being a tattletale or a rat or anything else. It's about allowing me to make any adjustments, upwards, never downwards, that might be needed for grade. So if you did all the work, then for heaven's sakes, tell me that. I kind of know already. This is a small class. It's actually the smallest class I've had in a very long time. It's kind of been fun to have a small class like this. But at any rate, so review this material. I'm assuming all of your programs are in. Some of you guys had no grade for program 1. I'm assuming you gave up and bailed. But do check your grades. If there's a discrepancy or something wrong, talk to me. I want your grades to be correct and accurate. And if I have failed to give you credit for something that you did, please let me know so we can look at it. And understand, even after the fact, grades can always be changed if there's a reason for it. So if I've made a mistake and you haven't come and said, Alan, you got this wrong, you know, sooner is better than later, but it doesn't expire. As long as you're still here and I'm still here, if you need the grade corrected and you find something wrong, please let me know. It's important that you get credit for what you have done. So, I'm done. Unless any of you guys have questions, I will see you on Friday. You know we're not meeting Wednesday. I will see you guys on Friday, 3:30 to 5:30 here. Yes, Kenny. I still have office hours. I will be here Wednesday and Friday morning. Absolutely. So, interact.